Hi, I'm Willis Sparks for Eurasia Live. I'm Global Macro Director at Eurasia Group. I'm here with Alexander Kliment, who is a Russia analyst and who is not wearing socks, I noticed. We'll talk about that later.
Sure.
We're here to talk about the fact that in the news tomorrow, you're going to notice that the president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is going to Russia to visit the Russian President Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg, Russia. And the funny thing is, Alex, 9 months ago, a Russian plane strayed into Turkish airspace and the Turks shot it down. And we were actually worried there for a few days that Turkey and Russia might actually stumble into a real conflict.
Yeah.
Here we are 9 months later, a lot's happened in the 9 months. Since then, talking about their new friendship, their new cooperation. So my first question, why is Erdogan going to visit Putin in Russia? What does he hope to get from his meeting with Putin?
So I think there are really two things that Erdogan's trying to get. The first and most urgent is to get Russia to relax some of the economic sanctions that the Kremlin imposed on Turkey after Turkey shot down that aircraft. If either side has suffered more from this conflict or this tension over the past 9 months, it's certainly been Turkey. Right? The Russians have banned the import of Turkish food products. They've stopped the flow of Russian tourists to Turkey, which is a major
very important for Turkey.
Very important for Turkey economically, and have made life really difficult for the many Turkish businesses, particularly in construction and banks, that do business in Russia. So the first thing that President Erdogan wants is for President Putin to relax some of those sanctions. At the same time, I think there's a geopolitical angle here as well. Turkey has come in for a lot of criticism from its allies in NATO, in the EU, and the US about the crackdown that President Erdogan has carried out in response to the failed coup that took place in Turkey last month. So I think there's also an element here where President Erdogan is trying to sort of show NATO and show the US, hey, you know, you can criticize me all you like, but
I've got other friends. I've got other options.
Yeah.
So what does Putin get out of it then? If Putin is welcoming Erdogan, presumably he's got an angle here too. What's his angle?
Yeah, well, Putin certainly loves the idea of presenting Russia as the alternative to NATO or to the EU or to the US, right? He does that very well. He sees that Turkey's in a position of economic and political uncertainty, you know, sort of increasingly strained relations between Turkey and NATO, and so Putin sees a great opportunity to kind of swoop in and say, hey, you know, I can be an alternative. I think there are also some specific things that Russia wants. One is to get President Erdogan to take a more accommodating position on Russia's aims to expand its naval power in the Black Sea. Right. Turkey is a major Black Sea naval power on its own. I think Russia would probably also like to see Turkey not be quite so supportive of the Crimean Tatars who have been marginalized in Crimea since Russia annexed.
But Syria is a big part of this too, right?
But Syria is a big part of this too. And I think Syria is actually one of the places where there's a limitation on how far the two sides can go. Russia and Turkey have very different views still on what the future of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad should be. The Russians basically say he should stay in power for some period of time. The Turkish side basically says he should be out of power as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Erdogan can't stand him. Right? So it's possible we can see some narrowing of their positions on this issue. Right? The Turks might cut back some of their largely ineffective support for anti-Assad rebels. The Russians might cut back support for some of the Kurds. But I think it's that basic kind of deadlock about what the future of Syria looks like, I think, is a limitation on strategic partnership.
We were wrong to worry 9 months ago that Russia and Turkey, a NATO member, might end up in a conflict. Are people wrong now to worry that Russia and this NATO member, Turkey, are getting a lot closer together?
I think there's a long way between a tactical rapprochement between Ankara and Moscow and a full-blown departure of Turkey from the NATO alliance, a strategic alliance with Russia. I mean, these things are so far-fetched. But from Putin's perspective, he doesn't need Turkey to leave NATO. All he needs is to raise enough doubts about the coherence and purpose of the alliance that individual member states wonder whether the project is worth carrying on at all, right? Right. Putin sees NATO as the #1 existential threat to Russia's sovereignty and security. So anything he can do to raise questions about the purpose or coherence of the alliance is a net win in his book.
So they're both thin-skinned leaders that tend to get themselves into fights, but they're both also political opportunists, and we're going to see that tomorrow in St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I can't speak to their skin, but I can certainly speak to their political style.
And they're thin-skinned, yes. Thank you, Alex Kliment.
Thank you, Willis.